Module 4, Lesson 3 is all about explaining what a just culture is, and equally as important, what it isn't. Just culture starts with a premise that we're all fallible and that we are trying to do the best we can with the resources and knowledge we have. We are continually trading risks and uncertainties against goals and objectives, sure that we wouldn't do something that had a 100% certainty of injury, death or damage. Other than those who are suicidal, I don't know anyone who gets up in the morning and actively decides that today is a great day to die, to injure themselves or somewhere else or damage their equipment. Now that doesn't mean that a just culture is a no-blame culture. Far from it. If someone steps over the line and it's grossly negligent, commits willful violations or sabotages equipment or safety, then they should be punished. Interestingly, gross negligence can only be defined in a court of law given the facts that are presented. Professor James Reason, one of the pioneers of safety culture and human error research, defined a just culture as an atmosphere of trust in which people are encouraged, even rewarded, for providing essential information, but in which the line must be drawn between acceptable and unacceptable behaviour. This brings us to the next point about just culture. It isn't so much as to where the line is drawn, but who draws it. In many severe injury or fatal accident cases, it's the lawyers who try to draw the line and the judge-jury determine if this is the case. In the case of non-fatal events, it's often the peer community who draw the line, many of whom have no idea about human error, violations and their causes. Social media can be a double-edged sword here. On the one hand, it provides the opportunity to share important information quickly. On the other, it's full of biases and ill-informed comments that limit the learning and prevents others from speaking about their incidents or accidents. We are on a continual journey to develop and support a just culture. My efforts have been going on since 2011, when I started developing and promoting human factors and a just culture in the diving community. This 6-stage model shows you why it's important to have a just culture and how it can help the diving community develop and learn from incidents and accidents. Now, with a just culture present, those involved in incidents and accidents are able to tell context-rich stories. Stories that include the errors which were made and the reasons behind them. These might include task fixation or goal focus, incorrect training, or the guidelines or procedures were wrong. These stories won't just focus on the immediate events and the proximal cause, that cause which appears closest to the event, but will go much further back in time too. With a context-rich story, a detailed analysis can be undertaken by those with training. Training that takes a systems view of the problem. The analysis doesn't just stop at the rules that were not followed, the violations that were committed. It moves beyond the outcomes, but rather looks deeper across the multiple players and stakeholders, from diver to dive team to equipment to training to materials to motivation and drivers and so on. Accidents happen because of interactions across a complicated, complex system. Rarely are they a simple cause and effect chain. Once we have the analysis, we can start to develop rules, social rules, that allow us to pick up the interactions within the elements of the system and say something about them. More rules doesn't mean more rules in the traditional sense. In fact, detailed analysis might remove rules as they are unworkable. Once we start to creating conversations which cover multiple sectors of the system, including equipment, training, divers, dive group and the environment, we start to create a learning situation whereby we can realize that you can't treat these topics in isolation. There are always trade-offs between risk and reward, uncertainty and certainty, based on the resources and knowledges we have. Once we realize we can't train for every circumstance and write a rule for each situation, we create an environment where we develop resilience. Resilience is the ability to stretch and bounce back and improve after adversity. We create it by learning outside the box, learning to dive in the real world and not just how to pass a course. We create it by debriefing dives to learn ourselves, and when failures happen, we can share them wider because we know we have a just culture in place which will support this storytelling, and so the circle continues. The next module will look at what happens if we don't have a just culture in place and where focus on blame limits learning.